south. On June 14th, 1940, the Germans seized Paris and France surrendered on June 22nd. Thousands of French and British soldiers at Dunkirk escaped on fishing boat and went to England, where they joined the Free France force led by General Charles de Gaulle, future President of France. General Charles de Gaulle. It was far easier to replace military equipment than men, so it was important that they live for fight another day. The Battle of Britain. In the summer of 1940, Hitler began his air attack on England. During the Battle of Britain, the Luftwaffe means air weapons. German air force heavily bombed London and other parts of England. Britain, led by Prime Minister Winston Churchill, refused to surrender. The Royal Air Force (RAF) fought the Luftwaffe until the Germans retreated. Hitler decided to change directions, leading the resources and manpower of the Soviet Union, but worried about competition from Stalin, he decided to attack Russia in June 1941, breaking the pact the two countries had formed. The Soviets were forced to retreat, losing thousands of troops who were captured or killed. Stalin changed course as well. Stalin joined the Allies and ordered his people to destroy their own resources and burn their own cities before the Germans could get them. This is a scorched earth tactic. A lot of children were evacuated from London during the bombing. This event even appeared in the Chronicles of Narnia books. The main characters are sent away to live in the English countryside. Isolationism and reality. The US tried to stay neutral between 1935 and 1937. Congress passed the Neutrality Act, making it illegal for America to sell weapons or loan money to foreign nations. When FDR was elected for a third term, the first time any president had served more than twice, in 1940, he knew the nation was on the brink of war. Congress had expanded the American military at FDR's request, and in 1940, it passed the Selective Training and Service Act, the first peacetime draft in American history. In March 1941, the Land Lease Act made it legal to sell or lend weapons and supplies to the Allies. That August, after Germany attacked the American destroyer, armed warship destroyer, FDR and Churchill issued the Atlantic Charter. It stated that neither country had any territorial ambition in the war, and that all people had the right to determine and live under a government of their own choosing. Pearl Harbor. Meantime, in Japan, Hideki Tojo, a military leader, was elected Prime Minister in 1941. Tojo became a dictator and soon had more influence than the Emperor of Japan. After successful invasion in mainland Asia, Tojo set his sight to one island like the Philippines, then controlled by the US. Japan, Hawaiian Island. Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, Oahu, Pearl Harbor. To destroy the American Navy, the December 7th, 1941, the day President Roosevelt called the date which will live in infamy, infamous, notoriety, shame, dishonor. Japan launched a surprise attack on the naval base of Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. It was a devastating attack to sink or heavily damaged 8 U.S. battleships along with 3 cruisers and several other ships. A total of 2,403 American civilians and servicemen were killed, and 1,178 were wounded. The only thing that spared even more U.S. lives was the fact that the U.S. carrier fleet was not in port and thus was undamaged. The next day, FDR asked Congress to declare war on Japan. 3 days later, Germany and Italy declared war on the U.S., so Congress declared war vague. Mobilization on the home front. Industries produce tank, ammunition, and other war-related products under the direction of the government. All the work ended the Great Depression, creating an employment rate of almost 100%. New government agency formed just like the World War I. The War Production Board decided which goods factories would produce. Americans were encouraged to ration, allowance, quota. Rationing, control of how much of something is available to each individual in a group. Food and Grow Victory's Garden. The Officer and Price Administration controlled inflation. The National War Labor Board dissolved the labor conflict. The Revenue Act of 1942 raised taxes. The government also raised money to selling war bonds. Opportunities and discrimination. World War II provided opportunities for women and minorities. Protests of raised revenue were used to encourage women to work in factories and the defense industry. We can do it. Women enlist higher member of WACG, Women's Army Corps, waivers, women appointed for volunteer emergency service in the Navy and the WASP, Women's Air Force Service pilot, but as a non-combatant. Threat by Black labor leader Philip Randolph to protest in Washington, D.C. led Roosevelt to sign Executive Order 8802, the Fair Employment Act, prohibiting discrimination in factories supplying the war effort. African Americans work in defense factories in the North. Army units were segregated in the beginning of the war, but there was integration of the sports of the fighting. Famous black units include the Tuskegee Airmen. Native Americans fought, and they also created the unbreakable secret code based on the Navajo language. The government recruited Mexican American laborers called braceros to work in agriculture. On the flip side, women were still paid much less than men. Greater African Americans and Mexican American presence in city led to tension and riot, including in 1943, Jews shoot riot in LA, named after the clothing style worn by many young Latino men at the time. Minorities were paid less than white workers. Japanese internment, detention. Japanese immigrant Iseri in Japanese. The Americans of Japanese descent, Ninsei, faced discrimination. Even people born in the U.S. were suspected of being spies. In February 1942, Roosevelt issued Executive Order 9066, forcing Japanese Americans to leave their homes and move to internment camps. In 1944, in the case of Konglish v. United States, the Supreme Court upheld this as necessary. In 1942, The 442 Regimental Combat Team was created and composed of Japanese Americans. They served historically during the war in Europe but were not allowed to fight in the Pacific. Over 40 years later, Congress admits that the internment had been wrong and made a formal apology.